All right, so Shudder's got a new film here. I guess it's Giant Spider Month here. Along with Sting, we've got a French film called Infested. This is one we are looking forward to. And while we're discussing Infested, Kaylee is over here infected. So she's probably not going to speak as much because every time she does, she coughs it up. But she wanted to be here to give her thoughts. And yeah, she's not feeling well. But she's a trooper. She's dedicated to this channel. And she's going to cough all over me and get me sick. And no? Okay. All right. So, Infested. This is about, spiders. If you are an arachnophobe, then oh boy, this one is going to be a rough watch for you. Now, as to where with Sting, there was a good marriage of comedy and horror, and the creepy stuff was creepy and the comedy was funny. As to where with this one is much more straightforward, much more serious. It doesn't really have much comedy at all. So if you're looking for the scarier of the two, if you're looking for the more serious toned one of the two, then this is definitely going to be the one that you're going to want to gravitate towards. Now, this deals with an apartment complex, much like Sting, and we follow this young kid who gets this spider from like a local pawn shop, I think, who sells illegal species, stuff like that. And our main character here is a bug enthusiast. And so he buys one, brings it home, and of course it gets out and it infests this apartment complex. So obviously this has a very similar setup to Sting with the apartment complex setting. Now, as to where with Sting, it was much more of an intimate setting with a much smaller cast and a very small apartment, so everyone knew each other. This is a similar vibe in the sense that everyone knows each other like a community, but it's a much grander scale. It feels like a much bigger apartment building. And that's probably one of the highlights of the film for me, is I really liked the sense of community that they had, and it felt very authentic and genuine in that way. And so that was a big selling point. Now, I do want to point out that it was announced that this was going to be one of the directors of the new upcoming Evil Dead films. Yes, films. We also have another Evil Dead film in the works alongside of the director of the Last Stop in Yuma County, which we have a review for that's under embargo until the 29th. But yeah, you get to see the makings of this director, to see what inspired Sam Raimi to sign off on him being a Evil Dead filmmaker. The same thing happened with Lee Cronin after he saw A Hole in the Ground, as well as Fede Alvarez. I mean, he definitely has a good eye. I trust his opinion on this, and while watching this, I can see it. This kind of does emulate Evil Dead Rise a bit, because you are stuck in an apartment building. But this one utilizes the apartment building much more, as to where with Evil Dead Rise, everything kind of happens on one floor and then the basement. This one, you go from the basement, all the way up. And as far as my negatives on the film, I would say my biggest gripe with the film is that we don't really get to see the kills much, and they're not very gruesome or memorable. And that would probably be my only real big downside, is I would have loved for the spiders to be more nasty in their killings. I would have liked to see the killings on screen, and that's something that Sting, I felt, did very well. And we got aftermath stuff within that, and we also got some on-screen mutilation, as to where in this one, not so much. But they do really deliver on the creepy crawlies. There is a lot of fucking spiders in this movie, and if you are an arachnophobe, as I had said, you are going to be squirming in your seat thinking about this happening to you.
I really loved this movie. I also loved Sting, but this one felt actually a lot scarier to me. I don't have arachnophobia. In fact, I actually really love spiders, but I think that this film really makes you feel like you have arachnophobia. Like there's no way you can't be afraid of the spiders in this situation. I think that they're used super well in the entire movie, and as you had already said, especially in the apartment complex, like the building itself is just like this death trap full of spiders, and it's terrifying. I love the way that the spiders themselves look. There's several like different iterations of them throughout, and I really connected with our main character. I really loved him like as a character. I think that the actor did a great job as far as the performance goes, but I just found him to be really relatable for me in a lot of ways, and just very likable.
Yeah.
But also not a perfect character. Like, he has flaws, but I just connected with him like pretty much instantly. And I think that's really important in horror movies in general, to find a character that you can relate to, and especially in a situation like this where you want people to survive. You had already kind of touched on it, but the sense of community in this was definitely a highlight. I think we get a lot of different types of people, and that's always interesting in situations like this, to see how different characters react and respond to the horror that's happening around them. So I really liked that.
Yeah, one film this reminded me of once things start going down is the movie Wreck or Record. You'll see why. As far as your attachment to things here, I think one of the cool aspects of this film is that we're not dealing with the traditional arachnophobe. We usually follow people that are like terrified of spiders, and our main character here loves spiders. In fact, they don't even want to kill them at first. They're trying everything in their power to save these spiders, but then at some point, you've got to throw in the towel, and it has to be every man for himself, or, every human to themselves. And I get that, and I like that journey, and I think that's a very cool way to explore this. Typically, it's people who just either are outright terrified of spiders, like in arachnophobia, or people who are just regular people, and they're like, those are huge, terrifying spiders, I want them dead, as most people would. But when you have somebody who genuinely loves these kind of rare species, he's enamored with them, and I think that brings an interesting dynamic to the film. And yes, while the film has a lot of horror in it, it's got a lot of dramatic scenes as well, and a lot of character growth, and a lot of character interaction. So it isn't just a B movie that is focused primarily on big spiders killing people. I would say that it does a very good job of building not only the community, but also our core cast of characters, and the dynamics and the conflicts between them, and how they get exacerbated or resolved throughout, I think was done very well. And I think everyone in this is very good. And they also give every character some kind of trait that they can then later use in a very organic way in the film. That's like, oh, that's how this is going to apply in this scene. That's cool, right? And I always appreciate that stuff when you can figure out a way to not make it eye-rolly. I very much look forward to seeing what he can do with Evil Dead. I can't wait to see what the Yuma County director does with Evil Dead. The Evil Dead future seems to be bright.
Yes.
And this is absolutely another great big spider movie alongside of Sting. We got two really cool giant spider movies in an apartment complex, very close together. Which is the superior of the two is really just going to be dependent on your preference of style.
Yeah.
If you're more of like, oh, I find this to be silly, and I vibe with it better when it embraces its silliness. or I'm terrified of this. This is my nightmare. And so them playing it more serious makes it even scarier to me.
Yeah.
I can appreciate both.
Me too.
I probably prefer Sting just because I really like a lot of what's going on in there and we get the kills. But with this one, I don't know. They're such different movies in tone that it's kind of hard to compare, but because they are so similar in a lot of ways, it's kind of hard not to compare them.
Yeah. I don't think I can really pick between the two because I do like them both equally. As you said, the tone is just wildly different with each one,
So it's currently streaming on Shudder. If you are an arachnophobe, then this is probably not one for you, which is always kind of funny with horror in general. It's like the audience that it will land with the best is the ones that refuse to watch it.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job of the effects on them.
Yes.
I never really felt the CG very much.
I didn't.
Even though there's a decent amount of CG in here, I think it's done super well. And when we get close-ups of them, they're almost always practical.
Yeah.
And they got there's a lot of good attention to detail, like a lot of faine hair on their legs and stuff that just gives an authenticity to it. So, yeah, good stuff. Definitely worth watching. And once again, Shudder has another film that they didn't send us a screener to, so they can go fuck themselves. Because I am tired of trying to get a hold of them to get me screeners. Fuck you, Shudder. I'm sick of you. But I'll continue to keep covering your movies, even though you won't send us anything, you pricks. So send that over to the fucking CEO. All right. We'll see you in the comments. Bye.
Bye.